Sunrock Bazaar, Gravity Chamber Center. 30 mid-rank mana stones. Jihad gritted his teeth with red eyes as he performed high-intensity physical exercises under twofold gravity. He felt extremely indignant with the cost but didn't dare idle inside his gravity chamber. It had actually cost him an extra 20 mid-rank mana stones to power the rank 1 gravity chamber for an hour. He thought he had brought quite a fair bit of wealth, but he didn't expect an alarming portion to disappear on a mere rank 1 gravity chamber. That said, he had no choice but to admit that even a mere rank 1 gravity chamber was surprisingly effective for his training. Only 15 minutes had passed since the start of his training, but his whole body was drenched in sweat. There wasn't a spot within his body that didn't burn like it was on fire. He felt encumbered with heat and exhaustion. Normally, he would only reach such a state of exhaustion after performing his clan's high-rank physical exercise for a whole hour. However, the reality was that he had achieved it in 15 minutes under the effect of the gravity chamber. The twofold gravitational pressure didn't merely improve his training efficiency twofold but actually fourfold. He had saved 3/4 of an hour in training. Nevertheless, reaching the state of extreme exhaustion was only the real starting point of body refining. Only by pushing the body to the limit would one have hopes of surpassing their physical limitations and improving. Jihad didn't expect much from a rank 1 gravity chamber at his level of cultivation. However, the truth surprised him. When he pondered why that was the case, he realized it was due to his internal organs. They weren't used to the pressure. Thus, the burden on them was the greatest. The sense of exhaustion came from them. Not his limbs. The actual feeling was hard to describe. The exhaustion of his internal organs felt different from the exhaustion in his muscles. It was like his heart itself was doing sit-ups non-stop. Even if it felt extremely tired, it couldn't stop pumping in overdrive. Such a situation actually gave Jihad a sense of trepidation and fear. He felt like his heart would burst if he pushed himself too hard. Nevertheless, Jihad himself was addicted to this sense of danger. It was exciting and thrilling. Even though his physical strength wasn't improving, his internal organs were consolidating, becoming sturdier and more resilient. The benefits of consolidating one's internal organs were more than just enhancing endurance. After half an hour of training, Jihad felt his aura becoming smoother and easier to control. Consolidating internal organs made it easier to compress his aura. As such, it also allowed him to produce strong aura-powered attacks faster. Just by having better consolidated internal organs, Jihad felt like he was stronger than aura users of the same level. More importantly, the bottleneck preventing him from becoming an aura grandmaster also seemed to be loosening. The quality of one's internal organs determines one's achievements in aura cultivation. Jihad seemed to have comprehended something great as his eyes lit up brightly. Nevertheless, his arms and feet never stopped moving as he threw out unnatural punches and kicks. But despite the unnatural movements, there was also a sense of smooth, natural flow in them. It was quite puzzling and contradictory to a normal person, but there was also beauty in it. A regular person wouldn't understand. As Jihad wholeheartedly trained, making full use of his time in the gravity chamber, Vaan's situation was the complete opposite. Vaan was physically idle as he studied how the magic circuits and arrays hidden in the center panel generated omnidirectional gravitational pressure. At his level, the twofold gravitational pressure had absolutely no effect on his body, not even his internal organs. His entire body was firm and seemingly indestructible. It would never bend to such meager gravitational pressure. As such, Vaan would rather use his time to acquire new knowledge. The great Rathalos Empire's gravity chambers would surely benefit him if he wanted to raise his own army of body refiners. Nevertheless, Vaan realized the magic circuits and arrays in the gravity chambers didn't work together to produce their own gravitational pressure. The core of the gravity chamber's gravitational pressure came from a piece of star iron. However, it wasn't just any regular star iron either, it was star iron from the Black Mountain. Such star iron must have originated from an especially powerful star in the vast sea of stars. As such, its quality was incomparable to the star iron commonly found in Pangaea. These circuits and arrays don't produce gravitational pressure, they only amplify the gravitational pressure that already exists within the star iron, Vaan understood. Although the truth was a little disappointing, the knowledge was useful nonetheless. More importantly, Vaan made a startling discovery when he powered the gravity chamber with 20 mid-rank mana stones. The gravity chamber was just one of many gravity chambers in Sunrock Bazaar. There were far more throughout the great Rathalos Empire. Furthermore, the gravity chambers in other regions of the empire were of higher quality as well. In other words, the demand for mana stones would be astronomical. If other gravity chamber centers in the empire were also as busy as Sunrock Bazaars, the daily consumption of mana stones would be unimaginable. However, the Witch Kingdoms occupied the best lands and monopolized the abundance of mana spilling out from Gehenna. Even if the great Rathalos Empire received a great import of mana stones from other countries, how could it possibly keep up with the daily demand? Mana stones were used for many things, not just gravity chambers. The total consumption of mana stones in the great Rathalos Empire should have plunged it into a severe mana stone shortage long ago. However, there was news regarding such a matter. So what did this imply? It implied that there was still a steady circulation of mana stones in the great Rathalos Empire. It was not short on mana stones. Based on that fact alone, the great Rathalos Empire was by far wealthier than the Holy Knight Empire. Where and how did the great Rathalos Empire acquire all these mana stones to keep up with its consumption? The Eastern Sea. Vaan mused with growing interest. All answers pointed to the Eastern Sea. It was an entirely new frontier waiting to be explored by him. The Eastern Sea was full of secrets, unknown dangers, and opportunities. Vaan had only been to a small part of the Great Rathalos Empire but had already caught a glimpse of its immense wealth. And with such enormous wealth, its development and strength wouldn't be weak at all. He wouldn't be surprised if the Great Rathalos Empire's military completely eclipsed that of the Holy Knight Empire. It was no wonder the Great Rathalos Empire was never interested in conquering other countries. With an endless frontier to explore, like the Eastern Sea, which reaped immense wealth, the benefits of subjugating other nations weren't even worth mentioning. The Great Rathalos Empire was completely focused on internal stability and development. That was why it never invaded another country, nor could it be invaded. However, this wasn't a permanent status. If the Great Rathalos Empire didn't suffer any major regression and continued its stable development for the years to come, it would eventually reach a point where it would be forced to expand its territory. Otherwise, its development would stagnate. However, such a situation was far in the distant future when it faced the problem of overpopulation. That said, given the threat posed by Gehenna, it may never reach such a future. Sometime later, the allotted time expired before Vaan exited the gravity chamber in a calm, casual demeanor, completely absent of any signs that would suggest he had undergone strenuous training. On the other hand, Jihad came out looking dead as a doornail and sweating like a pig under the summer heat. His movements were slow, sluggish, and burdensome. But although he seemed drained of energy and his mental strength was depleted, the glimmer in his eyes remained spirited and unyielding. It seems you have benefited much from training inside the gravity chamber. Definitely. But, alas, this kind of special training is too expensive. Jihad glanced back at his gravity chamber and sighed, feeling slightly depressed. He didn't expect to experience what it was like to be a poor man. Although he could continue to train in the gravity chamber for a few more hours, he also didn't want to be left behind by Vaan. Thus, even though he was reluctant, he had to leave. He understood it was better to save his remaining mana stones for the trip to the capital. It wouldn't be too late to train in the gravity chambers again once he earned more mana stones. While Jihad's head hung down to catch his breath, he suddenly noticed Vaan's shadow moving away. He immediately realized Vaan was already leaving without any notice. "Thank you for your patronage, sir. Please visit us again," the female Dunin clerk said as Vaan passed the front counter to leave the gravity chamber center. He didn't look back as he did. Hey, wait. Wait for me, Sir Pendragon. Jihad cried. Unfortunately, despite having heard Jihad's request, Vaan didn't pause his steps. He kept walking until he left the building and was gone from sight. He didn't need to delay his journey because of Jihad. Given Jihad's cultivation, he could catch up after some rest, as long as Vaan didn't suddenly decide to travel at high speed and leave him in the dust. Jihad could only chuckle bitterly after seeing Vaan's disappearing back. After shaking his head, he quickly uncorked a green-colored potion and emptied it down his throat. It was just a normal stamina-replenishing potion commonly sold in the market back in his hometown. It had the benefit of speeding up his recovery. Even so, it would still take time for a full recovery of his stamina. Unfortunately, he couldn't wait until then as he feared losing Vaan's trail. As such, he had no choice but to drag his tired body out and force himself to catch up. Seeing that, Jihad had no choice but to drag his body and force himself to catch up. Since Sunrock Bazaar didn't have much value after Vaan experienced the gravity chambers, he decisively left the city for the next after buying a general map for a single low-rank mana stone. The general store owner had thanked him graciously for his generosity. Although Vaan already had some maps of the Great Rathalos Empire in his memory bank, he still wanted to compare the maps and verify his knowledge. After all, the information acquired from books wasn't necessarily always the truth. Blind faith could have regrettable and unbearable consequences. Nevertheless, Vaan found out there weren't any discrepancies in the information. Thus, his effort and mana stone had been wasted. Even so, it was always better to be safe than sorry. The Great Rathalos Empire was unlike any other country. It did not put any effort into conquering its perilous lands for human habitation. As such, all kinds of beasts and plants were growing in such regions. Unless one were behind the walls of a human settlement, there would always be dangers lurking about in the lands of the Great Rathalos Empire. A strong nation of warriors could not be built if warriors lacked trials. This was the idea behind the founding emperor of the Great Rathalos Empire. Although Vaan didn't believe there was anything in the Great Rathalos Emperor that could pose a threat to him, he didn't want to grow complacent due to his great strength. Such complacency could become habitual, and such habits were poisonous, whether it was to his survival or growth. How could a man aspiring for the sky wallow in the comfort of the earth? As such, Vaan wanted to avoid relying on his strength to cross the perilous lands as much as possible and only use his wits. For that reason, he was also traveling somewhat slowly. Since he was on a training journey, how could he skip any challenges along the way? Although the possibility wasn't high, he still had a chance of stumbling across some rare plants or materials he might find useful. After traveling 25 kilometers northeast of Sunrock Bazaar with Jihad lagging a short distance behind him, Vaan entered the Thundering Highlands, home to the steel-beaked eagles. Previous steel-beaked eagles. These gray-winged creatures with metallic features weren't considered powerful beasts in Pangaea but weren't too weak either. The majority of them could only reach rank 2 upon adulthood. Only a few exceptions make it to rank 3 in their lifetimes. Such a level of strength posed no threat to Vaan. Even Jihad could safely cross their territory as long as he didn't go out of his way to provoke their entire group. As for the regular warriors, they had to execute much more caution when crossing the Thundering Highlands. They had to make use of the rock pillars as covers to stay out of sight. After all, they were not necessarily strong enough to ensure a swift kill once a steel-beaked eagle spotted them. If they couldn't kill a steel-beaked eagle before it summoned its kin, they could only await death. The steel-beaked eagles usually hunted alone. But they would always call out for their kin once they felt threatened. Because of their rallying power, the steel-beaked eagles were considered quite a big threat to those below rank 3 body refiner. Nevertheless, the rallying power of their cries wasn't the most threatening aspect of steel-beaked eagles. The most threatening aspect was their ability to store lightning in their bodies. They could paralyze their prey with electrical discharges. In a battle of life and death, even a split-second immobility could prove fatal. As such, rank 2 body refiners and below were quite wary of steel-beaked eagles. It was also believed that the frequent lightning storms above Thundering Highlands were all caused by the steel-beaked eagles. Their main diet consisted of giant sandworms, most plants native to the land, and occasionally humans. As Vaan passed through the Thundering Highlands with Jihad in tow, he occasionally stopped to harvest valuable plants and minerals such as lightning grass, thunder root, and shock crystals. Although Vaan deemed them valuable due to their variety of uses, these items appeared quite common in the Thundering Highlands. Nevertheless, each time Vaan stopped to harvest them, Jihad was given a chance to catch his breath. Furthermore, Vaan had also been delayed by a number of challengers who had followed him outside of Sunrock Bazaar. On the other hand, despite traveling more than 30 kilometers from Sunrock Bazaar, Jihad had not fully recovered from his exhaustion. Even Jihad himself found it surprising. Normal travels would not exhaust a body refiner. Thus, in most cases, 3 hours should have been more than enough time to recover from his sense of exhaustion. However, it had become clear to Jihad that he had underestimated the stress he had put on his internal organs during training under gravitational pressure. Even at that moment, his heart was still pounding loudly inside his chest. Kiwi! 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 Following the high-pitched cries of a steel-beaked eagle, Jihad's tired expression abruptly turned serious with wariness as he looked to the skies. A steel-beaked eagle was swooping down towards them from a high altitude. They had been discovered by a steel-beaked eagle. Fortunately, there was only one. Jihad became vigilant as he prepared for battle. However, he soon relaxed after realizing he wasn't the steel-beaked eagle's target. Someone as strong as Sir Pendragon would have no trouble dealing with a steel-beaked eagle. Kiwi! Kawi! The steel-beaked eagle's sharp and mighty steel talons descended on Vaan, only for the latter to grab. Following a powerful yank, the steel-beaked eagle pulled from the air and slammed into the ground. Boom! A small crater was formed under the strong impact, knocking out the steel-beaked eagle. It was incapacitated with a single blow. The corners of Jihad's lips twitched at the sight. The steel-beaked eagle's main body alone was easily 5 times his body mass. Only adult steel-beaked eagles were that big. Furthermore, its body was riddled with an alarming number of scars. That showed it had quite a long history. Based on these observations, Jihad estimated the steel-beaked eagle's strength was around peak level rank 2. And yet, it was dealt with so casually by Vaan. Jihad knew he was strong, but the result still surprised him. "You're not going to kill it, Sir Pendragon?" Jihad asked with surprise after seeing Vaan ignore the incapacitated steel-beaked eagle, leaving it behind. In the Great Rathalos Empire, it is a crime to kill beasts in the wilderness if we aren't going to eat its meat and sell its body parts. We've only just started crossing the Thundering Highlands and still have a long way to go before reaching the next city. It's inconvenient to carry such a large body around, Vaan replied nonchalantly. I see. That's true, Jihad casually agreed with Vaan's reason before suddenly pausing in thought. He had already seen Vaan stowing away many plants and minerals in his leather backpack. It was impossible for so many items to fit in there unless it was an interspatial storage tool. As such, Vaan's reasoning was just a random excuse. In truth, Jihad had guessed correctly. Vaan noticed the steel-beaked eagle had far too many scars and recognized its life hadn't been easy. As such, he had arbitrarily decided to spare it out of the goodness of his heart. Nevertheless, Jihad decided to drop the matter despite his doubts. The skies slowly darkened as Vaan and Jihad made it halfway through the Thundering Highlands. During this 120-kilometer trek, Vaan had looted a surprising amount of plants and minerals. His slow journey could be considered fruitful. Based on the traces left by pressing travelers, Vaan knew many people had used the same path. And yet, so many valuable plants and minerals were ignored. He was quite speechless by this discovery. Some people just don't know a treasure when they see one. But as the saying always went, one man's trash was another man's treasure. When Vaan thought of this popular phrase, he didn't know whether to feel happy or terrible. Rumble. Jihad's stomach suddenly grumbled like the angry roar of a grizzly bear, prompting Vaan to glance back with a look of wonder. It was the first time he had seen such a loud stomach rumble. Huh. It must be a result of the training back at the gravity chamber center. Jihad guessed with a wry laugh, feeling slightly embarrassed by the sudden attention. Previous chapter. Next. Beyond the Thundering Highlands, a stretch of flat land could be found from the east, reaching to the north. In the past, this stretch of flat land used to be filled with rocky hills. However, it had been leveled for human settlements and agriculture. In fact, this stretch of flat land possessed the largest farmland in the western region. And it all belonged to one person, Zahid Armstrong. Zahid Armstrong was the Duke of Dragonmore and the current reigning emperor's third younger brother. He was also one of the few legendary figures in the empire to have transcended human limits and reached rank 5 body refiner. In honor of his achievement, he was bestowed the name Dragonchild by the previous emperor. As such, he was mostly known as Zahid Dragonchild or Duke Dragonchild. At that moment, Zahid was watching the farmlands, which lay beyond the city of stone, from the balcony of his castle on the 5th floor with a proud look. It was his habit to do so during this specific time of the day. Only when the sun was setting could he see the splendor and beauty of his life's achievements, the farmlands. The land used to be barren, there was nothing more than rocks and sand as far as the eye could see. Naturally, it wasn't a place fit for humans to live. It was he who, with the help of his people's blood, sweat, and tears, transformed it into a land of vegetation and life suitable for human habitation. It might have taken half his life to achieve, but it was still his proudest work. Zahid furrowed his brows upon discovering a shadowy figure in the distant sky, approaching from the direction of Sunrock Bazaar. As it drew closer, he recognized it to be a wyvern rider. A wyvern rider from Sunrock Bazaar? I wonder if my nephew is asking me for food supplies again. Zahid muttered to himself. Nevertheless, despite recognizing the wyvern rider coming from Sunrock Bazaar, he did not prepare to receive the guest. Instead, he continued to enjoy his view freely and calmly without concern. My lord, Lord Chaska sent Sir Diamar to deliver a letter addressed to you, a female servant shortly informed. She held a wooden tray and extended it forward with her head lowered. Zahid picked up the single letter from the wooden tray without much thought and read it. But as he read it, he raised an eyebrow with a more serious look. By the end of the letter, his expression was surprisingly calm. Zahid did not react the same way as his nephew Chaska. In truth, there was a moment when he did reveal some anger in his eyes while reading. However, it was quickly replaced by calmness and interest the further he read. After some thought, Zahid ordered his servant to go and summon one of his best guards, Bakram, a mid-level rank 4 body refiner, to his study room. You called for me, my lord? Asked a sturdy Dunin warrior in black leather armor after entering the study room with heavy steps. Zahid didn't say anything and simply handed his nephew's letter to him. Although Bakram was taken aback, he quickly understood his lord's intention and accepted the letter. This. After reading the letter, Bakram frowned. He felt uncomfortable, but for a different reason from Chaska and Zahid. How bold of this person to claim the name Pendragon for himself. What qualifications does he have to own such a name? If anyone deserves to be called Pendragon, it should be my lord. Bakram thought. Since you have finished reading, I want you to find this person and test him, Bakram. It would be best if you could force him to reveal his full strength, Zahir instructed as he opened a drawer to fetch an item. If the person refuses a normal challenge, you may use this as a wager for a blood exchange. The value of this item should provide enough temptation. Zahir casually handed a fist-sized sandalwood box to Bakram. This. Bakram's eyes bulged in shock the moment he peeked inside the sandalwood box. His hands couldn't help but tremble nervously as if they were suddenly holding a large chest of high-rank mana stones. Are you sure you want me to use such a valuable item just to test some random young warrior, my lord? Bakram asked carefully. Why? Are you not confident in winning? Zahir grinned with amusement. Bakram kept his mouth shut instantly. His eyes suddenly glazed with determination before he swore to carry out his lord's task. The sandalwood box only contained a single pill. However, it was also precisely this pill that was worth thousands of high-rank mana stones. It had a high demand but no stable supply. It wasn't something one could buy with wealth alone. It was a rank 4 body reformation pill. The rank 4 body reformation pill could easily elevate the strength of a rank 4 body refiner by a minor stage. If a normal rank 3 body refiner took it, their strength would be promoted to the peak of rank 3 body refiner or possibly breakthrough to rank 4 body refiner. But at the same time, if a normal rank 3 body refiner with weak foundations ingested such a heaven-defying pill, the violent potency could easily kill them. Nevertheless, such dangers didn't make the pill any less desirable. Bakram couldn't help but feel envious as he left the study room with the pill box. He wondered why his lord would take out such a precious pill for some unknown warrior. After Bakram left, Zahir returned to his balcony and peered into the distant dark clouds in the sky with a thoughtful look. A rank 4 body refiner who was only in his 20s was a talent that couldn't be found even if one searched the entire empire. I wonder if this child will be the impending storm that will change this nation like the Black Rose Kingdom and Holy Knight Empire. Will he bring good fortunes or a great disaster? I hope he doesn't disappoint me. Zahir mused. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Thundering Highlands, Central Region. The explosive stomach rumble that came with the setting sun was something Jihad had not anticipated. The sense of extreme hunger came without warning. It was like his internal organs suddenly drained all his energy reserve. But rather than thinking of food, Jihad thought about training. It was easier to improve his strength if he practiced physical exercises in such a state. However, there was also a catch. He couldn't train in such a state for longer than 2 hours. If he failed to replenish his body with food within that time, his efforts would have a detrimental effect on his body instead. At least, that was what he had been taught. Jihad glanced up at the skies, hoping to catch the sight of a steel-beaked eagle, which could potentially become his next meal. Even if he wanted to train, he had to secure his food source first. Naturally, he had brought along rations and water for the trip. However, he was confident they wouldn't be enough to satisfy his terrible hunger. Rumble. Jihad's stomach grumbled again, and with it came a stronger sense of hunger. Jihad felt lethargic as strength left his body. His steps became slower and more sluggish, causing him to lag further and further behind Vaan. Jihad thought he was knowledgeable in body refining, but it was the first time he had encountered such a situation. It appeared he had greatly underestimated his hunger level. Is this a side effect of intense training under gravitational pressure? When Jihad had that thought, he suddenly recalled the gravity chamber center's manual did mention it was recommended to have a big meal 1 to 2 hours after using their gravity chambers. After finding out the hard way as to why it was recommended, Jihad could only blame himself for forgetting. Whoosh! Jihad almost wanted to chase after it and hunt it down, until he quickly realized it was an adult wyvern. Although he failed to see if someone was riding the wyvern, a wyvern equipped with a harness couldn't possibly be a wild one. All wyvern riders were considered elites in the Great Rathalos Empire. As such, Jihad quickly gave up. He wasn't confident he could beat the wyvern rider, not to mention wyverns were national beasts. It was a crime to kill wyverns, let alone eat them. Suddenly, Jihad found himself forgetting about his hunger as he felt envious of the passing wyvern rider instead. Sigh. It must be nice flying on the back of a wyvern. I wish I could also fly, Jihad lamented enviously. Witches and wizards could fly with their magic, but body refiners and aura users couldn't. They didn't have the support of magic like witches and wizards did. As such, riding on the back of flying beasts was the next best alternative to flying. Jihad glanced up at Vaan with surprise. Jihad had unexpectedly caught up to Vaan. The latter had paused his steps after hearing his comment. Rumble. Jihad's stomach grumbled again, causing Jihad to clutch his stomach with an embarrassed yet wry smile. Smile. Is something the matter, Sir Pendragon? You wished you could fly. Why yes. Who doesn't? Huh. I can help. Huh. You can, what? How? The exchange was brief, and Jihad couldn't determine Vaan's intentions or where he was leading the conversation. However, he immediately regretted asking in the next moment. Sir Pendragon. Jihad's shoulders were abruptly grabbed by Vaan before he was launched 5 meters up into the air. As his body descended, he felt his ankles caught by firm grips. In that instant, a faint premonition of danger sprouted in his heart. Vaan spun 3 full revolutions and hurled Jihad into the sky with great force, sending the latter flying a couple hundred meters through the air. Ah! Jihad's cry caused a group of warriors tailing a short distance behind them to shiver with dread and apprehension. The strongest within this group of warriors was only a mid-level rank 2 body refiner. They had followed Vaan and Jihad because they thought they could have a safe passage through the Thundering Highlands if they did. After all, it was the shortest path to reaching the dukedom of Dragonmoor. Although they didn't know why the 2 people ahead of them had fallen out, they quickly increased their pace when they saw Vaan rushing forward. They didn't want to fall too far behind and lose their protection. Ah! Jihad's loud cry continued resounding through the air. Although crashing at such height and speed wasn't fatal to Jihad, so long as he braced himself with aura, he had been caught off guard by Vaan's brutal throw. As such, his cry was involuntary due to surprise. If he had been mentally prepared, he would have been exhilarated while enjoying the sense of flight. Nevertheless, when Jihad had time to reflect on his situation, he was shocked by the force applied behind Vaan's powerful toss. I thought this person was a peak-level rank 3 body refiner, but his strength actually surpassed that. Moreover, he looks younger than me. What a monster. Jihad was flabbergasted by Vaan's overwhelming talent. Huh. Jihad caught sight of Vaan's figure matching his pace while his body slowly lost altitude and dropped toward the ground. A sudden thought caused his face to pale. Don't tell me you're going to. Boom. With a powerful step, Vaan launched himself toward Jihad, grabbed both his ankles, spun another 3 times, and then hurled him even higher into the sky. Are you King kidding? Jihad's indignant cry resounded in the distance. This time, he was truly scared of the height. If he didn't have anyone to break his fall, he would be seriously injured or even die. Kiwi. Kiwi. A steel-beaked eagle's distant cry from higher up in the sky was heard shortly after Jihad's own cry. In that instant, Jihad's fear disappeared. His heart became calm and full of trust. He suddenly realized Vaan's intention. So you wanted to let me experience flight and attract a steel-beaked eagle over simultaneously. This is certainly killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I wouldn't have any problem with this plan, but... Damn it, couldn't you have at least consulted me first? Jihad felt aggrieved and wanted to cry. He wondered if every powerful person and monstrous genius was such an eccentric as Vaan. Kiwi. Kiwi. The steel-beaked eagle's distant cries resounded again as 2 large, shadowy figures dropped out from the dark clouds that hung in the high skies. Jihad's scream had not attracted 1 but 2 adult steel-beaked eagles. Furthermore, they appeared to be a pair. The 2 steel-beaked eagles stuck close to each other, almost like they were embracing each other, as they dived with coordinated rotation. With their sharp steel beaks and mighty wings, they drilled through the air with high speed. Without a doubt, Jihad was their prey. In normal cases, Jihad wouldn't fear the adult steel-beaked eagles, even if they came at him in pairs. However, the sky was their domain. On the other hand, his maneuverability was severely limited as he was free-falling. Under such a situation, he could only brace himself and receive the steel-beaked eagle's attacks head-on. However, as the steel-beaked eagles closed the distance with their sharp beaks ready to penetrate through Jihad's aura-enhanced body, 2 stones ripped through the air with extraordinary precision and speed. Naturally, these small stones had been flicked by Vaan. Poochie. Poochie. The small stone struck the steel-beaked eagles dead in the eyes, piercing their brains before shattering into pieces and exacerbating the internal damage. In that instant, the steel-beaked eagles lost all strength and life. Their drill-like attack lost its coordination as their bodies bumped into each other and separated. In the end, they plummeted past Jihad, narrowly missing him. Jihad couldn't help but break into cold sweats at the close meeting with death. But after overcoming the dreadful experience, Jihad couldn't help but feel even more shocked by Vaan's precision. Given the swiftness of the steel-beaked eagles, simply striking their bodies with projectiles was already considered impressive. However, not only did Vaan hit their bodies, but he had also struck their weakest points with impeccable timing, leaving them no chance to react and defend. The precision of the attack was impressive, but the timing was even more so. Jihad wondered whether he could have replicated such a result with his own skills. However, he could only shake his head in shame. The difference between them was like comparing heaven and earth, it wasn't even worth considering. However, Jihad wasn't disheartened by the gap that existed between them. Instead, it only fueled his motivation to strive for a higher peak. Jihad's eyes glowed with determination. Sir Pendragon is a master who has honed his throwing skill to the zenith. Just how exactly did he train to reach such a level of skill? Jihad wondered. Improving one's cultivation only needed hard work, but mastering one's skills required talent. Jihad became obsessed with self-improvement as he replayed the scene repeatedly in his mind. He thought he could acquire Vaan's skill if he kept studying it. Even after landing safely on the ground with Vaan's help, he kept pondering the matter. Before he knew it, the appetizing scent of cooked meat brought him back to reality. The two bodies of the steel-beaked eagles had already been salvaged and separated into three main piles: forging materials, potion ingredients, and edible meat. The eagle meat alone weighed over 1,000 kilograms, enough to feed 100 ordinary humans for almost 2 months straight. Even if Vaan and Jihad ate 20 people's worth of portion in a single sitting, it was still too much meat for them. As such, Vaan had invited the nearby group of warriors to join them for dinner. On the surface, it seemed like Vaan was being kind for sharing his food with these strangers. But in truth, he was using food to entrap them and acquire free labor. "That smells great," Jihad praised after getting a whiff of the aromatic spices that blended with the sizzling eagle meat. The three warriors roasting eagle meat with Vaan's utensils and spices could only smile wryly and thank Jihad for his praise before peeking at Vaan with apprehension. They were afraid of offending this great warrior. Thus, they were very mindful of their behaviors. Although Vaan had not done anything that would make him seem unreasonable and easily offended, he did watch them cook for him with folded arms. He was only studying their cooking method, but his attention put great pressure on them. Nevertheless, after everyone ate their fill, they continued their travel together. Vaan and Jihad gradually learned the names of the three warriors: Dar, Dink, and Dunny. They were actually brothers who shared the same mother. The remains of the two steel-beaked eagles were also divided between the 5 people. However, Vaan took the lion's share. Of course, Vaan could have taken everything for himself since he killed the steel-beaked eagles. However, Jihad contributed by acting as the bait, even though he wasn't aware of it then. On the other hand, dismantling the 2 large birds had been the 3 brothers' efforts. As such, they all deserved some share of the loot. The value of the 2 steel-beaked eagles wasn't worth much in Vaan's eyes anyway. At most, the salvaged materials, ingredients, and meat could only be traded for 60 low-rank mana stones. Such a meager amount was only enough to support normal living in the Empire, it wasn't enough to support cultivation. Dar, the roast meat cooked by you 3 brothers was not bad at all. You 3 brothers should keep cooking until we reach the dukedom of Dragonmoor, Jihad seriously suggested. Prior to leaving his home, Jihad had never cooked in his life. And even then, his own cooking had been terribly bland or inedible. Thank you for appreciating our cooking, Sir Jihad. Dar, the eldest brother of the 3, replied with a forced smile before thinking to himself, our cooking is nothing compared to real master chefs. However, we can still be regarded as food saints among amateurs, Did Vaan know how to cook? Of course, he did. In fact, his cooking proficiency was the highest in the group. He just didn't want to cook for everyone. Why should he cook when he could get someone else to do it? Suddenly, Vaan paused his steps, prompting the rest of the group to halt. Everyone quickly discovered a man in black leather armor blocking the path ahead. Actually, the person wasn't trying to block their path. He was just using the same path from the opposite direction. However, he exerted such strong, intimidating pressure that it seemed like it was impossible to get past him. Is there a Vandal and Pendragon among you? Bakram tiredly asked with an imposing yet aloof tone, having repeated the same questions over 100 times. Everyone subconsciously glanced at Vaan. Although Jihad and the 3 brothers didn't say anything, their subconscious action was as good as confessing Vaan's identity. As such, Bakram's dull eyes immediately lit up. You're Vandal and Pendragon? Bakram asked as he started sizing up Vaan to determine if there was anything special about him. And if I am? Vaan indirectly admitted before casually asking, who are you? And what business do you have with me? I am Duke Dragonchild's guard, Sir Bakram. Bakram introduced himself before continuing, I believe it should be obvious what business I have with you, Sir Vandalin. News of your feats on the way to Sunrock Bazaar has reached the dukedom of Dragonmoor. I am interested in challenging you. But I am not interested in fighting you. Vaan's nonchalant reply immediately surprised not only Bakram but also Jihad and the 3 brothers. After all, he had not refused a single challenge until now and defeated all his opponents with a single blow. What changed? Oh. Can I ask why? Bakram asked patiently, intrigued by the change. I have accepted many challenges until now, and they have been nothing but a waste of time. I gain nothing from these meaningless battles, so why should I keep accepting them? Why should I keep wasting my time? Vaan coolly replied. That's true. Bakram acknowledged, much to Jihad's surprise. I've heard your opponents were no stronger than a rank 3 body refiner. For someone as strong as you, opponents with this level of strength are indeed a little too weak to be worth your while, Bakram continued before asking with a confident smirk, but what about a mid-level rank 4 body refiner like me? Have I aroused your interest yet? No, Vaan flatly replied. No? Bakram repeated with a dumbfounded look. He didn't think it was possible for the young man in front of him to give such an answer. He had been completely confident the person would say yes. Alas, the reality proved otherwise. Nevertheless, Bakram was only momentarily taken aback before his impression of Vaan dropped to rock bottom. This young man accepts challenges when his opponents are weak but immediately refuses when his opponent is someone strong. Did he refuse to challenge me because he doesn't want me to break his undefeated record? Bakram wondered. As he arrived at that thought, he became gloomy and disappointed. At the same time, his depressive mood caused his intimidating pressure to become more oppressive. Even if this young man is a peerless genius with heaven-defying talents, his character is too rotten. His heart is weak, and his eyes are blinded by vanity. How could such a rare genius be like this? Bakram felt indignant and immediately believed it was his responsibility to teach the young man a lesson and correct his ways. In the great journey of body refining, talent was undoubtedly important. How could he let such a heavenly talent become wasted by chasing empty fame? Bakram thought. Meanwhile, Jihad and the 3 brothers immediately broke into cold sweats under Bakram's oppressive pressure. They weren't sure if they would be implicated because they were traveling with Vaan. But at the same time, there was also a little bit of anticipation and hope rising in their hearts. A battle between rank 4 body refiners. It was a rare opportunity. They would like to witness it. Bakram snorted at Vaan before saying, even if you are uninterested, you have no choice but to accept my challenge. And that's because I am challenging you to a blood exchange duel. Under the imperial law, a blood exchange duel cannot be refused. Oh? A blood exchange duel, huh? Vaan smiled with interest, but his gaze became slightly chilly. Before coming to the Great Rathalos Empire, he had naturally learned about its laws. That included matters related to the blood exchange duel. In the Great Rathalos Empire, it was normal for there to be a lot of competition between rivaling families and warriors. However, it was also inevitable that some intense competition would get out of hand and turn into irreconcilable hate. As such, the blood exchange duel was introduced to settle all blood debts and hatred between 2 sides in a life-or-death battle. Both sides were permitted to put forward conditions or wagers before the duel. Regardless of who won, the loser had to honor the conditions put forward by the victor, even if they were lifelong conditions. If they refused or broke the agreement, their entire family would be exterminated by the imperial family. Consequently, such a flawed law had loopholes and could easily be abused by the powerful to acquire more power and wealth from those weaker than them. In the early years since the blood exchange duel was introduced, many powerful families had indeed attempted to exploit it for their self-interest. However, such acts had enraged the ruling emperor of that period, and the entire empire was awash with the blood of all the fools who sought to take advantage of his new law for resolving grievances. Since then, no one dared to take advantage of the blood exchange duel when they didn't have any irreconcilable grudge again. After all, it was equivalent to slapping the emperor in the face, a capital offense that deserved the extermination of the whole family. The authority of the imperial family could not be challenged nor insulted. Despite the blood exchange duel having such a history, it was still frequently and surprisingly used in the present era, but only for wagers. Since Bakram dared to propose the blood exchange duel, Vaan was quite interested in his wager. After all, no one had the courage to propose a blood exchange duel in the present era when they didn't have any irreconcilable grudge. They would be more afraid of the other party reporting them to the authorities for trying to use the blood exchange duel for exploitative intentions instead. The only exception was if someone was completely confident they could tempt the other party with their wager. In other words, the blood exchange duel had become an awkward tradition in the history of the Great Rathalos Empire. Although it was a flawed law, the previous emperors didn't remove it, perhaps due to their pride. As such, the blood exchange duel had an awkward period where it existed, but no one dared to use it. It was only during the last 50 years that the blood exchange duel had deviated from its original purpose and became standardized for betting duels instead. Although it was still a duel of life or death, it was not as serious as when it was first introduced. After all, fists and swords had no eyes. No one could guarantee an accident wouldn't happen during an intense spar, especially with lucrative wagers involved. Warriors would go all out to defeat their opponents and claim their prizes. As such, accidental deaths were unavoidable. Furthermore, no one would be held responsible for the death of another in a blood exchange duel since it was something both parties had agreed to before dueling. Even the current emperor would turn a blind eye to most cases of the blood exchange duels as long as it didn't get out of hand and disturbed him. Vaan personally found the existence of the blood exchange duel quite meaningless and impractical. Simply said, it was a mess. It depended too much on good faith. However, who was he to judge how another country did things? Although it seemed to be working fine in the Great Rathalos Empire now, Vaan was certain it would never work in another country. In fact, if it were introduced in another country, that country would likely fall into chaos and disorder. Under the imperial law, a blood exchange duel cannot be refused. Vaan chuckled with derision before saying, perhaps an ignorant person might believe you, but I am not one of them. I can't refuse you. But I can still report you. Doesn't that also count as refusing you? Do you want to see who will be disadvantaged in court when I accuse you of exploiting people with the blood exchange duel? Vaan added thuggishly. Bakram was immediately startled by Vaan's words. He felt like he might have come off too strongly and gave the other person the wrong idea regarding the blood exchange duel. This little brother. I'm not trying to fight you to the death, okay? No need to go that far. I can see that you are an unparalleled genius, so I just wanted to test your strength. Look, I've even prepared something amazing to wager. If you can beat me, you can have it, Bakram hurriedly said. After he quickly took out the small sandalwood pillbox and showed the brown pill inside, it immediately grabbed Vaan's attention. An incredible scent of life emanated from the brown pill, but it slowly dissipated as the brown pill was exposed to the outside. The sandalwood pillbox's interior was coated in a crystalline texture capable of preventing the pill's vital aura from dissipating. This is a rank 4 body reformation pill, capable of raising a rank 4 body refiner's cultivation by a minor stage. It is priceless in the Empire and has no supply. Only a few people can get their hands on it. Bakram felt pained in his heart as he introduced the heaven-defying pill. Such a priceless treasure was in his hand, but it didn't belong to him. If the young man couldn't defeat him, he had to return the pill to his lord. A rank 4 body reformation pill, huh? Vaan muttered thoughtfully. Bakram had only revealed the pill for a short instant before closing the pillbox to conserve its potency. However, Vaan perfectly recalled its shape and smell in his mind. The incredible scent of life that emanated from the pill resembled divine energy. But at the same time, the scent of life also differed from divine energy. It was weaker. This is spirit energy. Vaan realized with astonishment. This didn't mean the rank 4 body reformation pill contained spirit energy within it. However, it did reveal the herbal ingredients used in its alchemic concoction were nurtured with spirit energy. What did this mean? There was actually a place in the Great Rathalos Empire with spirit energy. Moreover, the pill creator definitely knew how to prevent the spirit energy from disappearing. Vaan became interested in studying the rank 4 body reformation pill, but he was even more interested in learning more about the pill creator behind it. Nevertheless, it wasn't hard for Vaan to figure out that Duke Zahir had sent Bakram to test him. A mere guard was highly unlikely to possess the means to own such an invaluable pill. As such, the one who actually interested him wasn't Bakram but the Duke. I did plan to catch the attention of a big figure, but, to think I would also receive such an incredible gift, Vaan mused intriguingly. Since the rank 4 body reformation pill was delivered to his doorstep, Vaan had zero intention of letting it slip back into Duke Zahir's hands. That's an interesting wager you have there. However, even if I agree to fight you, I have nothing to match its value, Vaan casually said. And you don't need to. Bakram shook his head and seriously said, you only need to fight me with everything you have, that is all I require. If you beat me, the pill is yours. If you can't, then you can forget about it. Fair enough. I accept your challenge, Vaan calmly agreed. What else did he have to say? Since someone was trying so hard to gift him something incredibly precious, how could he refuse? Meanwhile, Jihad and the three brothers became super excited at once. They were about to witness an incredible battle between rank 4 body refiners. Without being told, they quickly retreated a safe distance to watch the fight. Come at me. I'll let you have the first 3 moves, Bakram generously gestured and said, that's the least I can do. Otherwise, people will say I am bullying young people. Vaan glanced at Bakram weirdly before asking, are you sure? Definitely, Bakram replied without hesitation before his gaze flickered with slight disdain, thinking to himself, do you think 3 moves is too little or too much? He might have introduced himself as a mid-level rank 4 body refiner, but he didn't specify he was only a slight step away from being a high-level rank 4 body refiner. That was why he was chosen. The Duke was confident in his ability. Vaan shrugged and no longer dilly-dallied. Afterward, the fight quickly started. The Dukedom of Dragonmoor, Dragonchild Castle. The following morning, Duke Zahir woke up feeling refreshed and amazing. Evidently, he had a great sleep. The fact that he had handed a priceless pill like the rank 4 body reformation pill to Bakram the previous day did not seem to have weighed down on his mind at all. Rather, his mood was lifted. He had great expectations and highly anticipated Bakram would return with good news. I wonder how Bakram is doing. He should have found the person by now, right? If his talent is as amazing as I imagined, I have to recruit him at all costs, Duke Zahir wondered with a deep look as he got out of bed and performed his morning routine. My lord, Sir Bakram has returned from his trip a short while ago and has been waiting to see you since, a female servant quickly informed the moment Duke Zahir stepped outside his bedchamber. Really? Duke Zahir's eyes lit up before he instructed the female servant, call Sir Bakram to the dining hall. We shall have breakfast together. As you will, my lord, the female servant obeyed. Sometime later, Duke Zahir arrived in the dining hall. Once he took his seat at the empty marble table, the servants quickly brought out the food they had prepped beforehand. Moments later, the empty marble table was filled with food, and the rich aroma of herbs and spices invigorated Duke Zahir with energy. He could immediately tell it was going to be a great morning. The only thing missing was Bakram's report. Creak. The main doors were pushed open, following Bakram's entry to the dining hall. Seeing the familiar figure in black leather armor approaching from the entrance brought a smile to Duke Zahir's face. But when Duke Zahir saw the state of Bakram's face, his smile froze. The person's face had been brutally bruised black and blue. Furthermore, upon closer inspection, even Bakram's black leather armor appeared a little tattered, and this was only after it had been patched up a little earlier. Bakram, what happened to you? You look terrible, Duke Zahir frowned before guessing. Don't tell me you've been mugged and lost the rank 4 body reformation pill? Bakram immediately dropped to his knees and pleaded, forgive me for failing to live up to your expectations, my lord. I wasn't mugged, but I have indeed lost the rank 4 body reformation pill. Duke Zahir's eyes flickered with a sharp glint, but it quickly faded the next moment. Duke Zahir was aware of Bakram's devoted loyalty. This person wouldn't try to steal his rank 4 body reformation pill for himself, even if he had the desire in his heart. You lost to the child? Duke Zahir asked with amazement. Bakram nodded with a mixture of shame, embarrassment, and lingering confusion, causing Duke Zahir to be even more astonished. Get up and take a seat, Duke Zahir calmly gestured before saying, you can slowly tell me what happened over breakfast. Thank you, my lord, Bakram replied guiltily. Although he followed his lord's order, he didn't believe he was worthy of dining with his lord, especially not after failing his task. The two silently ate their breakfast for some time before Duke Zahir finally asked, you can start from the beginning, Bakram. Yes, my lord, Bakram answered. As you instructed, I went to find the person called Vaan Pendragon to challenge him. He wasn't interested in a normal challenge, so I proposed the blood exchange duel and wagered the rank 4 body reformation pill. Only then did the kid agree to fight me. I also gave the kid an advantage of 3 moves at the start, but he was unable to hurt me due to our difference in strength. It was just as the letter mentioned, this kid only looks to be around 22 to 24, but his strength is already at low-level rank 4 body refiner. Duke Zahir frowned with doubt and interrupted with a question, if that child is only a low-level rank 4 body refiner, then how did he reduce you, someone who is almost a high-level rank 4 body refiner, to such a pitiful state? Ha ha ha. Bakram could only chuckle bitterly and ruefully before replying, I also didn't expect to end up like this, my lord. At the start of the fight, I held the absolute advantage with my superior strength. However, I couldn't land a single solid blow. Moreover, I kept receiving that kid's blows instead. Bakram felt a little indignant as he recalled his fight with Vaan. It was the most frustrating battle he had ever fought. No matter how many attacks he threw at the lad, they all evaded or diverted. The person was slippery like an eel, he simply couldn't catch him. That kid's movement technique was just so bizarre, I have never seen anything like it. It was fast and unpredictable. Moreover, I was even more shocked by that kid's resourcefulness. He was fully aware of our overwhelming difference in strength and made full use of his surroundings to compensate for it. I lost count of how many times I fell for his tricks and almost got crushed by falling rock pillars. Our fight even attracted steel-beaked eagles, and that kid used them to his advantage. Steel beaks, talons, and feathers, he used them all like flying daggers. I have never seen anyone more proficient at throwing projectiles than that kid. Mother F*** Kerr even threw rocks, sand, and the goddamn steel. Beaked eagles butts at me. Who fights like this? Who? Bakram gritted his teeth and shook with mixed feelings. As he recalled the fight in more vivid detail, he wanted to puke blood from anger and frustration. Who was bullying who? It certainly wasn't him doing the bullying. In fact, he was the one who got bullied instead. That Vaan Pendragon almost played him to death. The most frustrating part of that battle was that no matter how dirty or annoying that kid fought, Bakram couldn't fault him. After all, he told the kid to fight with everything he had, and the kid literally fought with everything he had. Who else could he blame for this other than himself? Meanwhile, as Duke Zahir listened to Bakram's ranting and complaints, he couldn't help but widen his eyes and drop his jaws in disbelief and amazement. But suddenly, he noticed a doubtful detail in Bakram's story. Hold on. There's something I don't understand, Duke Zahir mentioned before expressing his doubt, no matter how great that child's throwing skill is, it shouldn't be enough to inflict such injuries on your face, no? How did he beat you to such a sorry state? When Bakram heard his lord's question, his face flushed with shame as he stammered to reply, This. That's because of Hayes. Bakram sighed in resignation, knowing his hesitation was draining his lord's patience. He also understood the whole story had to be told eventually. Bakram gritted his teeth before continuing, everything had been a distraction. Every attack, every move, and every provocation the kid deployed were only meant to distract me from the real attack. From the start, that kid had been secretly striking my mobility acupoints. Naturally, such strikes were no different from a mosquito bite and wouldn't hurt me at all. However, even a mosquito bite would start to sting if repeatedly targeted in the same spot hundreds to thousands of times. I only took notice of it once the pain started affecting my movements. But by that time, it was already too late. I don't know what kind of move that kid used, but his final move immobilized my entire body in an instant. After that, the result is as you see, my lord. Huh. Bakram chuckled bitterly and said, I was too stubborn to admit my defeat in that situation. So that damn kid pounced on top of me and beat the living shit out of my face until I did. The corners of Duke Zahir's lips twitched once he finished listening to Bakram's story. No matter how strong Bakram was, he was still a rank 4 body refiner like that child. Thus, attacks within the same power rank still did some damage, even if there was a significant gap between them. That said, Duke Zahir couldn't imagine how many blows Bakram took to the face for it to be swollen to such a state. It must have been at least several thousand punches, right? How stubborn. Duke Zahir thought. Nevertheless, after his initial bewilderment and astonishment, Duke Zahir was only left with sheer shock. He felt a sense of loss for not being able to witness such a fight himself. But at the same time, Vaan's overwhelming talent only made him desire the person even more. Based on your experience fighting that child, do you think he was hiding any other strengths, Bakram? Duke Zahir asked with expectations. I would like to say no, but I cannot be sure since that kid did defeat me, my lord, Bakram replied dispiritedly before adding, however, this Darkhan young man's build is quite thin compared to pure body refiners. Furthermore, although he isn't the most handsome among the male witch descendants I've seen, he is still better looking than ordinary men. Thus, the chances of him being a witch's descendant is quite high, Bakram mentioned with some suspicion. After all, being a male witch descendant implied having a body that could cultivate aura. If Vandalin was a dual cultivator of both body and aura, Bakram couldn't imagine just how high his strength had reached. Moreover, how could there be such a heaven-defying genius in the world? So there's a possibility of him also possessing aura, huh? I want this child more or more. Duke Zahir muttered before his eyes suddenly flickered with a thought, what about this child's origins? Do you have any idea if he has a powerful background? Bakram frowned for a moment before shaking his head. I'm afraid not, my lord, Bakram replied apologetically before pondering harder with a deeper frown, however, this kid's skills are rather uncommon. I don't think there are many houses that could nurture such a talent yet also possess such peerless throwing skills and a comprehensive understanding of the human body, if there is one. Furthermore, they might also specialize in medicine and assassination. Unfortunately, I can't think of any houses that fit all of these criteria, Bakram said. Darkhan young man, heaven-defying talent, peerless throwing skills, has a comprehensive understanding of the human body, possibly proficient in medicine and trained in assassination. Duke Zahir pondered over the key points with a deep look before a single house came to mind. Could it be the Evermore family? Duke Zahir guessed, but he couldn't be confident. Nevertheless, Bakram was even more baffled after hearing the name. Although he knew of a few Evermore families, he was never aware of any of them being that powerful. That said, it was not like he knew every powerful family in Pangaea either. Which Evermore family, my lord? How come I haven't heard of any being that powerful? Bakram asked with surprise. This. Duke Zahir glanced at his close subordinate before saying, you don't need to know too much about this. You only need to know even the Armstrong Imperial family would treat the real Evermore family as their equal. So that's that. If you ever run into a member of the Evermore family, never look down on them and always treat them with equal respect. That might save your life one day, Duke Zahir advised. No matter what, Bakram was still one of his best guards. It would be a waste if Bakram accidentally got himself killed for such a stupid reason. Nevertheless, the Evermore family had always been the most reclusive among the 5 ancient families. Even the head of the family might not know where the Evermore family had settled since the blessed Golden Dragon tribe's dissolution. Did the Evermore family finally decide to emerge? Duke Zahir wondered. In his heart, Duke Zahir hoped Vandalin wasn't affiliated with any of the other 4 ancient families. After all, he still wanted to recruit the person. While Duke Zahir had his thoughts, Bakram couldn't help but be dumbfounded by what he heard. The Imperial family's equal. Bakram found it hard to believe. There weren't many families in Pangaea that would dare claim to be the Armstrong Imperial family's equal. The Braveheart Imperial family of the Holy Knight Empire was one, and the Weissman family of the Freedom Federation was another. But the Evermore family? What kind of power did it have for his lord to recognize it as the Armstrong Imperial family's equal? Oh, right, Duke Zahir suddenly uttered, breaking Bakram's chain of thoughts. Where is that child now? He should have entered my city by now, right? That should be so, my lord, Bakram nodded with a slight frown. Great. I will have to trouble you to find him again and invite him to my castle, Bakram. I want to meet this incredible talent myself. This. Can you send for someone else, my lord? Bakram groaned, feeling a little unwilling. Why? Do you object? Duke Zahir was slightly taken aback before saying sternly, you're the only person who has actually seen and exchanged pointers with the child. Naturally, I could only rely on you to deliver my invitation. Understood, my lord, Bakram helplessly agreed since his lord had said so much. Nevertheless, he couldn't help but smile bitterly and wryly in his heart, getting my ass kicked is still considered an exchange of pointers? Sigh. At the northeastern edge of the Thundering Highlands, Vaan's group made it through the last stretch of steep hills and rocky pillars before a vast, open land filled with crops and vegetation appeared. The sheer contrast between the flourishing landscape before them and the barren lands behind them left Jihad and the 3 brothers in amazement as they took in the breathtaking view, especially the plethora of purple heaths growing on the outskirts of the land. It was simply a beautiful sight, one that most people would not expect to find in a barren land of rocks and sand. They didn't expect the dukedom of Dragonmoor to be so beautiful, it was an oasis in the middle of a desert. It showed the tenacity of life to prosper even in the harshest of environments. So this is the dukedom of Dragonmoor. It is indeed full of farmlands. Vaan casually commented with a thoughtful look. The dukedom of Dragonmoor certainly lived up to its reputation as the biggest food supply of the western region, the scale of its farmland was on a whole different scale to others. However, many of its people still lived in poverty. As Vaan and the others took the main road leading to Dragonmoor City, they saw many farmers on the way. None of these farmers looked healthy, they were all thin and slightly malnourished, like they had never eaten until they had a full stomach and only had enough to get by each day. Food was life to the common people, and this region's farmland was also considered the heart of the West. If the ruling lord wasn't a fool, there was no way he would mistreat the farmers who cultivated his precious farmlands with their blood and sweat. If the conditions of the farmers are already like this, then the people living in the city should be even worse. It seems the dukedom of Dragonmoor is not doing too well these days, Vaan mused. Suddenly, a male farmer in his 60s collapsed a short distance ahead while tending to the crops. In the same time span when Vaan furrowed his brows, Jihad had already rushed ahead to assess the farmer's situation. Dar, Dink, and Dunny didn't follow to help either. They stuck close to Vaan and observed the situation from afar. "Old man, are you alright? What's wrong with you?" "Wah. Water. I'm too thirsty." Once Jihad understood the old farmer's needs, he quickly pulled out his wineskin of water and helped the old farmer quench his thirst. "Thank you," the old farmer said gratefully after his body was invigorated and felt alive, but his eyes briefly glimmered with guilt. However, Jihad didn't notice it. He helped the old farmer back on his feet before rejoining Vaan and the three brothers. Along the way, Jihad helped another 6 farmers in similar situations before he ran out of water and felt a little frustrated. He didn't expect Vaan and the 3 brothers to be so cold-hearted for ignoring people in need. When Jihad raised this problem, Vaan replied, "If you can't help them all, you shouldn't help them at all." "Why?" Jihad frowned. However, he couldn't wait for Vaan's answer before rushing ahead to help another collapsed farmer near the main road. Unfortunately, the collapsed farmer was also too thirsty, but Jihad no longer had any water to give. "I'm sorry, I ran out of water." "What? Why don't you have any water? You had water to give others, but you don't have any to give me? Why?" "This." Jihad frowned at the farmer's attitude and found himself retreating from the person. The person was giving him a resentful and angry look, that was not the look someone would have when seeking others for help. In that instant, Jihad realized the farmers had been faking their collapse to receive free water from passing travelers. Once the truth became clear to him, Jihad decisively abandoned the farmer and returned to Vaan with a gloomy look. At the same time, the farmer did not dare to pursue him and press the issue. Jihad's oppressive pressure had terrified him. "Now you know why," Vaan calmly said before adding, "if you can give them water, then they will naturally feel grateful to you. But if you can't, then not only will they not feel grateful to you, but they will even resent you. How can people be like this?" Jihad had a conflicted look as he frowned with mixed feelings. "If I don't have any water left, then I don't have any water left. Why the hell would they resent me for something I can't control?" Vaan glanced at Jihad silently before saying, "You must be from a pretty well-off family. You don't understand the desperation of the poor. They don't actually resent you, they only resent the fact that your water was already given to someone else and couldn't be given to them. Since they were too helpless to change their situation, you unluckily became their target, an outlet for venting their negative feelings," Vaan stated. Jihad sighed, feeling a little depressed. A few moments later, he glanced at the 3 brothers and asked, "Did you 3 also realize the farmers were tricking me for water?" "Not at all, Sir Jihad. We didn't think that far." Dar quickly shook his head and said, "We just noticed everyone was parched and in need of water and figured the dukedom of Dragonmoor was experiencing a water shortage." "Right. We didn't want to give away our precious water if water is scarce and costly around here. That would be like helping others at the expense of ourselves. We aren't that selfless," Dink added truthfully. Jihad's eyes twitched at the thought that he might not be able to acquire any drinking water even if he reached Dragonmoor City. However, he suddenly had another doubt. Hold on. If the dukedom of Dragonmoor is experiencing such a severe water shortage, how can the farmers maintain their crops? "That's a funny thing to say, Jihad," Vaan commented. "It's precisely because they are maintaining such a large farmland that they are suffering from a water shortage. However, the dukedom of Dragonmoor has no choice but to do it. The livelihood of the western region is dependent on the food produced here. If the crops die, then there will be a long period of famine. After all, water is easy to obtain, but crops take time to grow," Vaan calmly explained. Previous chapter.